Okay, so the next piece is going to be server-side attacks. Now, server-side attacks is actually what is our responsibility as security analysts because we get to see everything in the security operations center. We get to see the logs from the server, from the website, the web application, and everything else in between, the web application firewall, all the stuff we actually get to see. So we get much more granular and hands-on type of control when it comes down to these types of attacks. Now, as you can imagine, this is probably the least attractive type of attack from the perspective of the actual hacker because they know that we're watching them and we actually get to see everything that's going on. So if the hacker can, they will do the client-side attack, which is what we talked about right before this piece, right? So the server-side attack is the one that would be the most important for us to be aware of. Now, again, if you're just joining us, we're doing the detecting web attacks room inside of the security monitoring, web security monitoring module of the SOC Level 1 pathway of TryHackMe, and we are using the lecture materials from that. So let's read through this. The server-side attack relies on exploiting vulnerabilities within a web server, the application's code, or the back end that supports a website or a web application. Since client-side attacks manipulate user interaction, server-side attacks focus on taking advantage of the systems themselves. By exploiting flaws and vulnerabilities, server logic, misconfigurations, input handling, attackers can gain access, steal information, and cause damage to running services. So our favorite website is most likely filled with forms that allow user input. Absolutely. At the very least, login forms, right? These could be login forms that accept a username and password, search forms, or search for past orders or specific products. Any of these things, right? Any kind of interaction where we can input some kind of data, that's amazing for an attacker because they can also input something in there. So if the website mishandles the input from just one of these forms, then we are in trouble. This could allow the attacker to access sensitive customer or financial information stored in the backend. So to be able to catch these things, we need to be very, very prudent. I think that's the right word, right? We need to be very careful. We need to be almost paranoid, if I want to say. So with a server-side attack, it's very nice because there's a trail of evidence if we actually know where to look. Every web request sent to an application is processed by the server, and is recorded in logs or other monitoring systems. These requests also travel across the network, meaning network traffic can reveal suspicious behavior. In the next few sections, we're going to identify server-side attacks in both logs and network traffic. And so the previous image that we saw, everything was happening on the left-hand side with the client side. But on this side, this is actually in the visibility scope of the Security Operations Center because everything is being done against either our web application firewall or the server itself. And so the web application firewall, we get to see those logs. The server, we get to see those logs. So there's a lot of visibility on this side, which actually should make our job much simpler and easier and more effective, honestly. So the most common server-side attacks, the very big one, is a brute force attack, where the attacker repeatedly attempts different usernames and passwords in an attempt to gain unauthorized access. Automated tools are often used, so for example, John the Ripper, right? Allowing attackers to go through large lists of credentials and common passwords. T-Mobile had something like this in 2021 that stemmed from a brute force attack, allowing attackers to access the personally identifiable information of over 50 million T-Mobile customers. So imagine, their personally identifiable information could be their phone number, their driver's license number, their social security number maybe. I don't know if T-Mobile would have that, probably not, honestly. But their passcodes for sure, their payment card information for sure, their addresses, their email addresses, all of that stuff is personal information that a hacker can actually use to further develop their exploit. So that is a brute force attack. The SQL injection attack, also known as SQLI, is when they want to attack the database that sits behind the website and occurs when the application builds queries through string concatenation instead of using parameterized queries. So string concatenation is when you combine a variety of different strings together instead of using a parameter query, like a individual segmented query, which then this piece right here, string concatenation, allows the attackers to alter the intended SQL command and access or manipulate data. This happened in the MoveIt attack, which was a file transfer software, and it was exploited, affecting over 2,700 organizations, including the US government agencies, the BBC, and British Airways. So again, this is an attack against the website database or the web server database. So what is inside of a database? The usernames and passwords are inside a database, payment card information, addresses, etc., etc. Databases are actually probably the biggest working force behind any kind of a website or a web application. So imagine, for example, the database for Facebook.com, right? Imagine the type of data that Facebook.com has, which is why they had so many privacy lawsuits against them, and they had to tighten up their privacy rules and compliance and all those things, because if you have a series of web pages that you like, if you have a series of shows that you like, right, they fall under your likes on Facebook, and then those can be used for targeting ads or something like that, or your friends list, or your username and password, or your email, or your integration with a bunch of other websites, because there were a lot of websites that allow you to log into them and create accounts by using the Facebook single sign-on feature. So it's like when you go and try to sign on to some random website about home appliances, and as a part of the registration process, it says sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook. And so if that was an availability to them, then that shows up on your Facebook profile as one of your logins, right? And then now if somebody hacks into your Facebook profile through that database that is established on Facebook, they can go ahead and log into some other thing, you know what I mean? So it was a really, really crazy series of years. I think it took maybe over 5 years and a variety of different lawsuits for Facebook to really, really tighten up their security and compliance and privacy measures, just to make sure that their customers are not being taken advantage of. So really, really, really big kind of a attack that can take place, which is attacks against the databases. These are known as relational databases, and SQL stands for the structured query language. So it's the language through which we communicate with these databases, or the language through which a website will communicate with a database to be able to pull data, and to, if I want to log in to try hack me, right, there will be a query that will run in the background that will say, hey, this specific user is trying to log in. Does their password hash value match the password hash value that we have in our database? If it does, amazing, then they can log in. If not, then we can't let them log in. Right? Like basic. That's a very basic thing, but it happens constantly all the time. If you're doing any kind of access of data through any kind of a website, just know that there is a relational database, an SQL type of a query that's taking place in the background. And finally, we have command injection, which is a very common attack that occurs when a website takes the user's input and passes it to the system without checking it. So it's not being sanitized, the input is not being validated. So attackers can sneak in commands, making the server run those commands with the same permissions as the application, which ends up being a really high level of permissions. It's like doing something with system permissions, and system permissions are typically much higher than the average user's permissions. So if the system will actually run those commands that have been injected into normal regular queries, then it'll actually run it as the application. It won't use it as the user. It won't run it as the user. So it's very important to also understand this. These are just the most common. These are not everything that can happen against the server, and everything we talked about on the client side, they were also the most common. That's not everything that could happen against the client side attack. So what class of attacks relies on exploiting vulnerabilities within web servers? And this would be the server-side attack. Which server-side attack? Oh, what is this? I didn't know there was a weekly mission. Sorry about that. Hopefully that wasn't too loud or something. Which server-side attack lets attackers abuse forms to dump database contents, database being the key term here. So it's the SQLI attack. Very good. So now let's talk about detection mechanisms. So we're going to talk about log-based detection.